Hi guys, it's me Val, Toxic Free. Welcome. Happy Sunday or Monday, depending on how long it takes me to get this video out. I want to talk about something today. Still people are getting confused with narcissism, I think, because a lot of the comments in the Chris Watts videos seem all a bit baffled and don't really get it. I think if you've been in this community a while because you've been through the experience of a narcissist, I think we generally get it a little bit more. But I want to just try and kind of help people to understand what it is by showing a few clips and a bit of footage from somebody who was a prolific sex offender and paedophile, which is an awful thing to talk about, obviously. But he was a predator and he was an abuser in the UK. I think what it is we don't understand how people can hide their true selves to kind of like pretend to be nice when actually they're not. But these people want to get on in life. They want to gain things, they want to do things, and if they were the real person that they actually are, they wouldn't get anywhere in life. They want to be successful, they want to be loved, they want to get that ego boost, they want so many things. So what they do is they lie about who they are and they manipulate. Jimmy Savile, now if you're from the UK you will have heard about Jimmy Savile. Jimmy Savile was a DJ, turned into a TV presenter, and he presented a program called Top of the Pops and Jim Will Fix It. Jim Will Fix It was a program where he helped kids to gain their dreams. He got letters of children, and children would write letters saying, you know, can I swim with dolphins, or can I sit in a pilot's, cockpit and see what it's like to be a pilot? Can I eat 1,000 marshmallows all at the same time? Anything they wanted, Jim Will Fix It. He would fix it for them. But this man held a secret and hid a secret, and this is what I kind of want to talk about today. Is that this man was not who he was portraying he was. Because a lot of people want to gain things in life, but they have to pretend to be somebody, and we cannot understand. We have to re-educate ourselves. We have to rewire our brains to understand that not everybody who is nice is actually really nice. Not everybody who portrays empathy or is a saint or a good Samaritan is actually a good Samaritan, a saint. Because they'll pretend to be that to gain. They'll pretend. And it's so hard to get our brains around the fact that somebody we've known for a long time is maybe that kind of person, as in Chris Watts' case. But we were brought up thinking bad people were bad people and good people were good people, when actually it's not like that. It could be the other way around. So that's what I want to go into today. I want to show a bit of footage of somebody, and hopefully we can kind of get re-educated and get to understand that these people do exist, and they will hide behind a false self to get places in life. And they will also hide behind a false self because their actual true self is so malignant and so disgusting and so sick that if they showed that side to the world, they wouldn't get anywhere in life except jail. What I want to start doing is going a little bit more into psychopathy, because they do relate. Obviously, you know, not all narcissists are psychopaths, but all psychopaths are narcissists now. We need to remember that. But I just feel that we can connect and we can learn a lot from these people, which is why I'm going to start doing a few more videos on these types of people. Because like I said before, people can portray goodness. People can pretend to be good. But the bad person is mostly the real person. The good person is the fake. And the real person is the bad.
And I just pose away and take about 300 photos until I get the perfect selfie. One longtime acquaintance describes Dahmer as one weird dude.
Most victims simply didn't think people would believe them.
No idea where they went.
The killing spree was masterminded by the group's leader, 34-year-old ex-con Charles Manson.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Top of the Pops. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome indeed to Jim Will Fix It.
Made thousands of kids' dreams come true on his legendary TV show, Jim Will Fix It.
Dear Jim, please can you fix it for me to drive a 125 high-speed train? I am 6. Robert Fed.
I'm doing a video today on a guy called Jimmy Savile. Now, anybody who's outside of the UK may not have heard of him. Most of us have, because he was UK's most prolific, couldn't say that word earlier, prolific predator and abuser. I'm not going to go into too much detail of what this man did, because it can trigger quite a few people. It's not very nice, but I just want to do a few things. Since doing my Chris Watts video, it's kind of, I've got an interest in this now. I wanted to broaden my horizons and do a little bit more, you know, a little bit more kind of psychopath type things, which, you know, quite interest me. This guy used to do a program called Top of the Pops. Obviously a British program that ran for years and years and years, and he was a presenter on it along with many others. And he did a program called Jim Will Fix It. Now, Jim Will Fix It was about all these kids would write to Jim and they would ask him if, you know, he could fix it for them to, I don't know, swim with dolphins or to eat 100 marshmallows. Very strange. You know, I don't know, just be a pilot on a plane for the day. I don't know, weird things, but Jim would fix it. And back then, everybody thought it was a little bit creepy. But it's amazing how celebrity and having a high-profile personality in the media, in the radio, because he was also a radio DJ, you get away with a lot of things. Now, this program is about that. When I say program, don't mean I'm on the telly, but this video is about that. About how people can hide behind celebrity, hide behind a mask, which is what we know narcissists do. So this guy was born in Leeds, and he was one of 7, which, you know, might have prompted to the way he turned out. And towards the end of his mother's life, when she died, he spent 7 days alone with her body. And he said in interviews that was the first time he ever felt really close to his mother, when she was dead, in his house for 7 days. Obviously she hadn't died there, and he'd just not told the police. She had actually been put in the coffin and laying in state, is it called that? Not very good at that sort of thing yet. So yeah, he did charity work, and he made over £40 million for charity for 3 or 4 different hospitals in the UK. He did marathons, he did a lot for charity and a lot for hospitals, and this is what he hid behind. So after his death, that's when we found out what he was. People had made complaints and he'd got away with it. Only after his death did it all start to come out and all the victims come forward. He was honoured for his charity work. He was given an OBE. He was knighted by the Queen. He visited the Pope. He did so many things, and he knew so many people. There was about 400 lines of inquiry, like over 300 victims come forwards after he died. And that's what sickens us in the UK, the fact that this man lived his life doing everything that he wanted to do. And only after his death, he was given a big burial. He was buried in a gold coffin, and the streets were lined. Thousands of people came out to say goodbye to this man. And he had plaques everywhere, the charity he did. And he was given such a big send-off because he was a huge celebrity, and he made so much money for charity. But that's what gave him the power. It was his charity work, a Good Samaritan. Because if a narcissist, psychopath, sociopath, anybody wants to get somewhere, they hide behind a Good Samaritan. That's the best camouflage. And they're very, very good. They have to be very, very good. See, people say to me, oh, how can, you know, like Chris Watts, for instance, how can he be such a loving husband? How could he look like he was so perfect? That's what a narcissist is. That's what a narcissist is. They act so perfect, and they do everything, and they work hard. They work very hard because their life depends on it. They need supply. They can't live without it. So what they do is they create a life around what they need from people. And a lot of the time they go into jobs, into businesses, into some kind of work or career where they have these victims weak people, people that look up to them, people that need them for something. It's always about a need as well. These people always have a need. It's like a relationship where they'll give you if you give them. It's always a two-way road, and that's how they survive. Is they offer you something that you cannot do without, and that you need, and this is how they get away with it.
How did one man con the entire society?
From Stoke Mandeville to Broadmoor to Leeds General, he had keys, offices, flats. Jimmy Savile also had their total trust. He abused that, instead using his hospital visits to abuse some of the most vulnerable. Yeah, so they gave Jimmy Savile the keys to these places. There was 3 hospitals, like mental health institutes. They were kind of like hospitals that held mentally ill, dangerous people. The Yorkshire Ripper was in one of them, and Jimmy was friends with the Yorkshire Ripper. The Yorkshire Ripper is a man who murdered women in Bradford and Yorkshire area. So he was let loose in these places. He actually had a little house on the outskirts by the walls of these hospitals, and he would literally go and come and go whenever he pleased. And this is how he got away with it. He had keys to go into the wards. The nurses were warned to just watch out for him because he had wandering hands. So word got out. People knew that this man was dangerous.
It is the public that ultimately believed he was the saint that everybody portrayed him as. You know, there was a lot of people in the media, not just the BBC, but newspapers as well, had stuff on him.
And
they could never have run it
died.
because they basically believed that the public wouldn't buy it because we all thought he was this fantastic man who did all the charity marathons.
At 10 a.m. every Monday for the last 60 years, the alarm is tested at Broadmoor. It's a reminder of the day John Straffen escaped in 1952. It's a reminder of the type of patients that are here. A reminder of how specialised their treatment has to be. So here's a question. Why did no one sound the alarm in 1988, when someone decided it would be a good idea to put Jimmy Savile in charge?
Channel 4 News has been speaking to former doctors, nurses and other staff that worked in Broadmoor at the time about Savile's role here. They paint an almost incredible picture of a man with lots of power and of a man with lots in common with the patients here.
Well, I'd long considered him, as many of my colleagues did, as a man with a severe personality disorder, with a liking for children.
What was the talk among staff?
He was regarded as a paedophile.
By you, by the professional staff?
And the paedophile patients, many of those knew that he was a paedophile.
The giveaway then, paedophiles would gravitate towards Savile when he was in the hospital. Richard Harrison had a colleague, a staff nurse at the time, called Bob Allen.
I'd say he was a psychopath. I would actually say he was. Without a doubt. It's just the way his attitude was, his blasé attitude to everything. He didn't seem to care or worry about anything. A lot of our staff always said he should be behind the bars.
See, that's the trouble with psychopaths. They don't have no nerves. They don't have any anxiety. They're not anxious. They're so brave. They'll do anything. They don't suffer from anxiety like normal people do. They have no consequences. They'll do anything. And Jimmy Savile literally walks around these hospitals, in these mental institutes, doing what he pleased. See, no one took notice of these people because nobody wanted to stop the money from coming in. Jimmy Savile was making so much money for these hospitals, doing charity, doing marathons. That's sad, that the fact is that you were torn between telling people and reporting a man for abusing and being a predator, or losing the money that's keeping these hospitals going. And this is the power that this man had.
And what about other staff concerns?
Why didn't you do anything about it, though? Why didn't you refer it up?
What could you do? I mean, who would take any notice?
But here's the thing. Savile wasn't just a visitor here. Incredibly, for a time, he was in charge. In 1988, Health Minister Edwina Curry appointed Savile to head up a task force to run the place.
He had everyone under his spell, and everyone fell for his trick, portray him as he wanted, and he'd get away with anything.
Hospitals have rules with patients and things like that. Well, because I'm dyslexic when I want to be, I don't understand rules. A fella could get used to all this, as it happens, he really could get used to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, all we can say is good night from all of us here at the top of the pot.
See, he didn't have any boundaries. They don't. Psychopaths don't have boundaries. So he felt he could do what he wanted. He would walk around the hospital and he would... there'd be people that were disabled in one of these hospitals and... well, I'm not even going to go into detail what he would do, but he felt he had power to do what he wanted.
Powerful people were taken in by celebrity. They put a paedophile in charge who went on to abuse patients and others.
Despite his on-screen persona, Savile's attitude to children was apparently different when the cameras were turned off.
He did not like children at all. He tolerated them.
I think all children should be eaten at birth.
The fact that he doesn't even like children. So this is how far these people will go. They'll actually do things that they hate for the benefit that they get in the long term. So this man actually did a program helping children. He was at the Pied Piper and did things and gave gifts to people and gifts to children, but he absolutely hated kids.
What is apparent now, though, is that this seeming aversion to children was no more than a camouflage to ward off suspicion. A device Savile used throughout his life to stay ahead of the rumours that dogged him.
Abusers often are the most credible and charming people that you could meet. They're often very hard-working. They often hold positions within authority, within society of some standing. There was a man who clearly could be as charming could be, but also was both highly dangerous, extremely threatening and very intimidating when he needed to be.
See, this is the problem as well. They hold authority. Now, what a lot of people don't realise is that people in the police, people in positions of doctors, nurses, therapists, life coaches, you name it, people in the priesthood and churches, they go into these jobs because they have victims and weak people in abundance. They don't go into these jobs and then decide to be a paedophile or decide to be an abuser. They take positions where they can actually be in charge. They take positions of high positions in the police force. They are top. They are high up in the police force. And they do these jobs and take these jobs and work damned hard to go through schooling or whatever they need to do to get to these positions, because once they've got that power and once they're above everybody else, they've got that power, then anybody lower than them, they can say, you be quiet. You don't say a word else, I'll do this or I'll do that. And also the fact that they've picked the best camouflage. If you're going to be an abuser, be a good Samaritan, be a saint, be a pope, be somebody who people look up to. Hide behind the best camouflage that you possibly can. Pick something that nobody would ever look at and think. Hide. He hid in view of everybody.
People were afraid of Jimmy taking away. He obviously couldn't take the unit away, but if he stopped raising money for the hospital, the spinal unit in the hospital, what would that mean to them?
He appeared to be helping, but what he did was cause lasting damage.
See, there we go, there's a victim there just talking about the fact is that nobody really wanted to say anything because they were so scared. Each person who got abused by Jimmy daren't say anything, and they thought they were the only ones. So they didn't want to say anything because they held on to that guilt and held on to that shame just so that Jimmy could keep on making money for these hospitals and keep on, you know, because a lot of the time nobody wants to say anything, do they? Nobody wants to blow the whistle because they think they're the only one. And they haven't got the strength or the backing to actually stand up and say something. Which is why these people get away with so much. People didn't want to have him put away and have all the money that he was making for these hospitals taken away and stopped. People in positions of abuse, people victims, sometimes can be selfless. Sometimes victims think to ourselves, no, we'll not say anything because if I say something others will lose. So they go up through life with that shame and that guilt on them. And only now people are starting to talk about the shame and the guilt that they felt, that the fact that they didn't say anything because they didn't want to ruin other people's lives. Which actually contradicts, because other people's lives were also ruined. It's a catch-22, isn't it?
He had friends in the very highest echelons of society. Princess Diana and him were friends. Nobody messed with Jimmy Savile because he had connections that were unique, if you like, to somebody in his position.
If you can make friends with people in high places, it's that friendship that basically gives you the power. Because obviously nobody wanted to mess with Jimmy because he knew the Queen, he knew, you know, Prince Charles, he was friends with Diana. And you also think to yourself, well, it must just be me. Maybe I'm the only one that he's done this to, because why would Princess Diana be friends with him? Why would Prince Charles be friends with him? Why would Elvis Presley be friends with him? The Beatles be friends with him? He had friends all over the world. He has high celebrity friends. And the people, the victims that were going through the abuse by him, they never thought they'd have any strength against these people. Because why would these high profile people be friends with a paedophile?
In interviews that you don't have emotions.
Because it's easier. It's easier. So you got emotions. The truth is, I'm very good at masking them.
Another thing about Jimmy is the fact he'd actually slip out. He'd say things. The red flags were there. He always said things in the open. He said things to people. I think he enjoyed it as well. See, psychopaths, they're so, they like to show off and they like to play games and play the puppet master, but they also like to slip a few things out there. They like to do a few things just to see how far they can push the boundaries. It's like playing cat and mouse. Let's just drop a few innuendos. Let's just say a few things that I am doing. There's a few things coming up that he says, but no one picks up on it. And that was the power he got, was the fact that he could drop these little things into conversations. I think it was a game he played. They play games. He went around and he actually told people what he did. But he said them in a jokey way. He said them in a way that nobody would take him seriously. So also I think a lot of psychopaths do talk in the third person. I was watching the Ted Bundy tapes on Netflix, and he wouldn't really give out any information until the psychotherapist that was interviewing him, or the interviewer, whatever his name was, said to him, do you want to, basically asked him to describe what he did as if he was a psychologist. What Ted Bundy did was took himself out of that body and talked in the third person. And I think that's where it comes from, is the fact that these people find it so easier to talk about themselves in the third person because it disassociates themselves from who they actually are. If you can talk about the person and you can separate yourself from that, the shame of what that person's done, it's so much easier. It's a different person. It's a different persona. They just find it so much easier to slip into the third person occasionally. It's just what they do.
Jimmy's in the glen, and he's fallen off his mountain on a couple of bones. And he was going to come and get a pot on, but he's got a BBC TV crew making a documentary on him. Bear in mind, I've given you a lot of machines.
You also used to be a wrestler, is that right?
Still am.
Still am?
I've feared in every girls' school in Britain.
Meaning?
I can get anything. Yeah. There's nothing I can't get. But there's nothing I can't do.
So he kept dropping out hints of what he was. He kept saying things to people of what he actually did, but nobody really picked up on it. Saying he's feared in every girls' school in England. That was true, basically, because I think when he went around the schools, people knew what he was. But nobody said anything to anybody, any adults, because nobody felt they would be believed. And that's the trouble with narcissism, is nobody feels that you believe because it's so... Because they've created such a character and they've created such a persona. No, he'd never do that. It's not Jimmy. Jimmy's good. Jimmy gives money to charity. Jimmy runs marathons. He runs the London Marathon for charity. And the fact is, it's a cognitive dissonance, because from one hand you're seeing this pervert who's doing things that shouldn't be doing. On the other hand, you've got this man that's a godsend, that's doing stuff for charity, that's the most loved man, and he seems to go around and help people and does Jim will fix it. And which one's the real him? And it depending on who you're talking to, depending on which persona they'll actually believe.
Jimmy Savile's done well, hasn't he? Ah, and he'll look around and he'll say, he's not what you think you know. The forces of darkness are at work there.